Hello, friends, and welcome to Weekly Witness, Texas Impact's weekly podcast designed to help mainstream Texans of faith understand the legislative process and help you engage with public policy in the great state of Texas. My name is Scott Atnip, your host and Texas Impact's Director of Public Witness, and today we're going to jump right in because it is deadline week and we are tired. As a quick intro, we are recording the morning of Friday, May 16th, hours after the House and Senate concluded at midnight of one of the biggest deadlines of the legislative calendar. Last night at midnight, any bills not passed on second reading by their originating chamber died. As we've said several times over the last 2 weeks, that doesn't mean an idea or bill language is dead, as it might have a companion bill in the other chamber, or it could be amended onto another bill. But as of midnight last night, a bunch of bills are now dead. Some we mourn, and some we celebrate. So tonight, Friday at midnight, some more might die if they don't pass on third reading today. So as of recording, we have 16 days to go in the legislative session with another big week of deadlines in the next week. And here to talk to us about where we are and what we're still watching is Texas Impact's Executive Director, B. Moorhead. B, thanks for joining us.
Of course. Happy to.
I think we were together. Well, I know we were together a couple of weeks ago after another late night. I think that was the voucher night that ended at, 4 or 6 o'clock in the morning or something like that. And we were both tired and cranky. Are you feeling any more rested today during deadline week?
I am feeling a little bit more rested because they did not go as late last night as has sometimes happened. And part of the reason for that is that they did not have committee hearings when the floor was over. They had finished that, or they didn't have any of the ones that we were interested in. They did have an important committee hearing in the Senate, though, earlier yesterday that we need to talk about, which of course would be public education K through 16. But yeah, I think yesterday, it was less explosive at the very end than it has sometimes been. When you get to the very last little bit there, I think they're all tired and don't have the energy for the kind of fireworks that we have sometimes seen.
I think I said on Marching Orders Monday when we were together that if you really wanted some excitement, tune in between like 10 p.m. and midnight last night. And maybe I was wrong on that prediction. So if you stayed up to midnight to watch for some excitement, maybe you didn't get it. But what were your takeaways from deadline night other than there weren't any fireworks there at the end?
I think one big takeaway that's not just from deadline night, but really has been increasingly a topic of conversation all week has been the instances where there's obviously bipartisan support for legislation and obviously members trying to work together on things. And it's kind of interesting that you can see the reason that the deadline night wasn't as explosive as it has sometimes been is that a lot of the big controversial, ideologically driven bills had already passed. They were already done by the time we got to deadline. So what we were on last night was a lot bills that members really did want to make progress on. Their substantive, lot of bills that had to do with processes in the criminal justice, law enforcement, judicial area. Other ones that had to do with certain kinds of regulatory things. Those are bills where the members see the daily impact of the legislation. They really know that they want to do something about it. And there can be sincere difference of opinion that is based on the members' own experience, the people that they've talked to, that isn't driven by a paradigm or an ideological, perspective, but more about, no, listen, this is the way this thing works, and we all know we need to fix it because there's a part that's not working. The sad thing about seeing that happen is that it would be remarkable, because that should be the normal way the process works. And we saw people get heated about some of those pieces of legislation. But what we heard several times over the past, let's say, couple of days was members essentially saying, I don't often agree with this person. I don't often agree with you, Representative, whoever, or I often disagree with you. But we've been talking about this thing. You came to me early in the session and said that we needed to address this issue, and we've been working on it, and I'm prepared to support your bill. Or you and I agreed that I'm going to add an amendment, and that's going to make it so that my concerns are addressed. That's supposed to be how it works all the time. That's not supposed to be the anecdote. The anecdote is supposed to be, oh my gosh, it blew up into some big, you're a jerk, no, you're a jerk conversation. And instead, that's how a lot of the session has been. And we're just now seeing people like doing it the way it's supposed to be done.
Yeah, and that certainly stood out to me as well. We were talking offline, but I know Representative Howard at one point commended two legislators for working together and finding common ground to get a member of her party to yes on a bill that they had originally opposed. How do we, as advocates working in this space, encourage that behavior?
I think I have been thinking about this a lot this week. And one thing that I keep coming back to is we tell people all the time, you have to be in relationship with your legislator all the time, not just when the legislature is in session. And we a lot of times say that from the perspective of not transactionalism, but it's so that you can influence them, right? You want to be in a relationship where you can have influence. And often that influence that we want people to have, or that people want to be able to have, is to get a thing they want, right? To get the bill to pass, to not have the bill pass, to have the provision that they think is the right provision. But the other reason that you want, there's two, actually. The two other reasons that you want people to be in that ongoing relationship with their legislator. One is so they can understand what the legislator is thinking and how they think, so that they can understand if that person is getting the information they need to make the decisions that are in the interests of the community. And in some cases, the decisions that they're making don't feel like community ethos decisions, right? They might have to do with a transportation funding thing or a court administration thing or something. But the way the legislator makes their decisions and where they're hearing their information from does matter, whether they see this as something that impacts their community directly, or they see it as kind of a special interest thing that it won't matter what their constituents think so much. The other is, and I know that we are going to be talking about this, and it's going to sound harsh when I say it this way, but it's so they know if that person is able to serve the community effectively. If you have, we've talked about it as kind of an employment relationship in the past, and we know that it's not quite that, right? Because you're not electing somebody to work for you, you're electing them to represent you. But even more so, because you're implicated in the decisions that your legislator makes. If they vote for something and you voted for them, the kind of commutative property of, I think that's the one, the commutative property of mathematics would say, if they voted for the bill and you voted for them, then you voted for the bill in some way, right? You helped advance that decision. You really need to know how that representative is making their decisions and if they're able to work collaboratively with people, as we would say, people of goodwill who disagree with them. Can they affirm that sometimes this is not about good guys and bad guys? It is not about your tribe and my tribe. It is the case that people of goodwill can sincerely disagree about solutions. And that's, you need to know if your legislator really, really groks that. And a way to find out, and this session, we have, so many opportunities to go back and look at this. What you need to know is, how did you choose how to vote on this bill? How did you choose how you were going to vote on this other bill? There are so many bills where the question constituents need to ask, and they need to ask it soon. When session's over, you need to be ready to have the round table with clergy in your community, the town hall at your congregation, the group, the neighborhood association meeting. You need to be asking your legislator, on this list of bills, I see how you voted here, and I was kind of surprised or disappointed or happy or bemused. How did you make that decision? Not justify it to me. I want to know how you made the decision. What thought process did you use? Did you hear last night, Scott? I know that you did. The number of times people got up to the front mic to talk about their bill or to oppose or support a bill, and they said, I know you have a paper that says.
Mm-hmm.
I know you have a paper that says, or somebody would say, we heard actually Representative Goodwin, a representative from the Austin area, who said several times, this is on my list, and then would characterize it as a list that was given to her, right? Who gave you the list? Who said to oppose that bill? This is on a list of no votes for me. People who said, I know that you got our list, and in some cases they're referring to the caucus, their party caucus in the House. In some cases they're referring to the Conservative Coalition Research Institute, CCRI, which provides a daily, what we call a floor sheet. Is that how you're making your decisions? Or are you asking your constituents, or are you listening if your constituents call? And do you listen when your constituents call and you can say, well, my constituent said this thing, but I've got this other list, and because of money or because of other bills I care about, or what, I'm going to go with the guys that gave me the list, not the woman who called from my district. As a voter, at least you need to know that.
Yeah, and I think getting to that information is going to be really important over the course of the next few weeks. And we've talked about it. We talked about it on the voucher episode we did a couple of weeks ago. The question of are you representing your community, or are you representing interest from elsewhere? And I think that's going to be one of the big questions we need to be asking. But I think you adding to that equation, are you willing to sit down with people and have a conversation is another part, or are you somebody who just wants to like yell at a back microphone and not be part of a serious governing process? So yeah, I think that's some interesting homework we have for us over the course of the next few weeks, next few months. That said, we do have 16 days left in this legislative session.
And we have, in that 16 days, we have the single most telling vote maybe that people are going to take in terms of who are you really listening to? And that, of course, is House Bill 2.
So talk to us about that hearing yesterday and where we are, because there were some big surprises, I think, in the last 48 hours about that bill as it moves forward.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy. So here's what happened. Cast your mind back, if you will, to beginning of the session when we had Senate Bill 2 and House Bill 2, right? The voucher bill and the bill to increase public school funding. And what we heard was, Oh, absolutely. Yes, we absolutely want to increase public school funding, and in a very specific way, right? And the specific way was to increase the basic allotment. And what is the basic allotment? That is the bedrock state funding that goes to school districts as what in nonprofit land we would describe as undesignated general operating support. It is the money for the school district, for those local elected officials and the folks who they hire that work for them to make the decisions about how to serve their particular community. When you're a member of the Campus Advisory Council, when you're a member of the PTA, when you go to those school board meetings and say, I'm a concerned parent or a concerned taxpayer or whatever, the money from the basic allotment is how they're addressing the issues you raise. What the House approved, just to back up one step, what we know is that basic allotment has not been keeping up with inflation. And that has caused all kinds of collateral problems throughout the school system and in individual districts. And so to get the basic allotment kind of current for inflation, we know it costs about $1,300 per kid. So across the state of Texas, that would have been the number to target. And that's a lot of money to suddenly, it's sort of like coming current on a thing you hadn't paid in a while, right? Now it's going to feel like a lot. But once you get yourself recalibrated, then hopefully do better next time about staying current on that bill. Would have been $1,300. What the House voted out and sent to the Senate was, I think, between $300 and $400, $395.
Yeah.
$395. So almost $400 per kid. Not $1,300. About
But a good down
30%.
payment. Yeah.
But a good down payment. Yes, a good faith effort. And a couple of additional little things, but mainly really that money, that basic allotment, we're going to get current on this bill. Or we're going to start to get current on this bill. So they sent it to the Senate along with the voucher bill, Senate Bill 2. And the whole understanding was, we're going to do this voucher thing and the public doesn't like it. And there's all kinds of reasons the public doesn't like it. But one of the things that people say is, how can you be spending money on vouchers when we're not paying for our public school system, which is where most of our kids are? House Bill 2, the House Public School Finance Bill, was going to be the counterweight. Right? We're going to put some money into this private school thing that you maybe don't like, but we're going to put some money into a public school thing. And of course, and what every person, not the Milton Friedman people, but almost everybody who testified that they really want that voucher money said, of course, we also want to fund the public schools. And that's been an article of faith, has been, of course, we want to fund the public schools. We don't want to just fund vouchers. So both of those bills went over to the Senate, and the Senate speedily wound up the voucher issue, concurred on the House version, which, of course, had the extra little thing, the cherry on top of no vouchers for undocumented students. But the Senate didn't mess with that. They just said, sure, that's fine too. And the governor has signed it and vouchers are law. We're going to have them. Where's House Bill 2? Where's House Bill 2? Everybody wondered, where's House Bill 2? And there was a little bit of, we're not going to pass Senate bills. We're not going to hear Senate bills in committee until our House bills get heard, especially House Bill 2. And that didn't really stick quite as much as anybody thought that it should. And of course, school finance is not the only issue on the table, right? So there were other things that are also, I'm not doing your thing until you do my thing. But finally, 2 days ago, we finally saw the Senate committee substitute for House Bill 2. It is 225 pages long, and it is basically a complete rewrite of House Bill 2. It is not the same bill. And the basic allotment funding in the committee substitute for House Bill 2, the Senate committee substitute, is $55.
Down from $3.95.
Down from $3.95. The first time I saw it was in a text, and I thought the person had left off a zero. I said, 55, do you mean 550? And they said, no, 55. $55. It's insulting. That's like giving someone leaving your waiter a quarter as their tip. You've ever seen kids do this, right? They leave a quarter and they turn a full glass of water upside down over it. So I don't know if this is an Ohio thing, but there's a way to trap that quarter under a full glass of water on the table so that when the waiter goes to pick it up, they will end up getting water all over everything. It's a really, really mean thing to do. And it's a way of saying how much I disrespect you. That's what that is. It's that quarter tip on the bill for the whole table. On top of that, so $55. Well, that must not be a very big fiscal note on that bill then. Well, no, it's a huge fiscal note. It's $8.6 billion. What could they be paying for if it's not the basic allotment, the money that we really need in those school districts? One, teacher pay raises. Well, that doesn't sound bad. Of course, that's what the basic allotment would pay for, is teacher pay raises. Not just teachers, but teachers and counselors and, the woman who has been sitting at the front office at the elementary school, Miss Hanson, the one from my kids' elementary school, who was your first point of contact as a parent, the person that every kid knows, is still Facebook friends with all my kids who are, all of them and their friends that are in their 30s now. Miss Hanson also needs a raise, right? This is not that. This is only teacher pay raises, and they are centralized. So your school board doesn't have a choice about giving teacher pay raises or other school district pay raises. This is the legislature. The legislature is giving you this pay raise. It's going to be a pay raise from 181 people plus the lieutenant governor and the governor, just so you know who to be grateful to. And it's uneven. So it specifically says rural teachers in rural school districts get bigger raises than in urban districts, and not just a little bit bigger, like twice as much, which is interesting. Sure, it maybe is harder to attract really high quality teachers with lots of experience into a rural district. Maybe there does need to be, we do have a teacher incentive allotment already to help with that. But the reason that urban and suburban school districts might be having trouble is that the cost of housing, particularly in those areas, is so high. It is so much higher than in rural areas. And the legislature could easily find that out because we have a county by county list of the average cost of housing for each county. So they could have said, we even think school districts should calibrate to the cost of housing. But no, it's just across the board. We've decided this is how we're going to do it. It doesn't matter what your school district thinks is important. This is what we, the legislature, thinks is important. And then grants for really specific things, not grants for broad programming like, I don't know, gifted and talented or arts or things like that, but grants for certain kinds of early learning specialists for children in grades X through Y. And specific kinds of initiatives where the school district doesn't get to say, well, this is what we think would be the best benefit for our students, but instead has to apply for this grant from the Texas Education Agency when, and again, talking as, we're a nonprofit, a lot of the people who listen to this program would have had experience applying for grants, and the way that when you are applying for a grant, you're trying to figure out, what do they want me to say? What do they want me to say so that I can get the money? Not, what do I want to say would really help my community? I mean, it's just such an upside down way of thinking about, why would we even have local school districts if we're not going to trust those local elected officials and the people who elect them? I mean, we have on our own leadership council of Texas Impact a local school board member, Representative Jessica Kane. She has to run. She has to mount a campaign. She has to get elected. She's elected because people in her community would think she would do a good job making decisions for their community. But the legislature knows better.
Yeah, it's definitely an affront to local communities, local elected officials. I mean, we used to trust our school boards.
We should trust our school boards. It evidences complete lack of faith in the community, and again, not just in superintendents or school principals who are just such an easy target every time when they are doing such a hard job. Not just lack of faith in them, and not just lack of faith in the school board members, but lack of faith in you, the voter. You're doing it wrong. Bless your heart. You just can't guess what would be the right choice for your community. Let us legislators help you with that. That, and also a complete lack of understanding of the community. Because if you really know the members of the community, if you really understand who's there, who are the voters, who are the people they're electing as their school board, you surely would believe that you can trust them because you would know them. And like we said, so two-way street, right? What you need to be saying to your legislator is, how are you making those decisions? You can ask your the legislator can ask you that same question. How are you making your decisions? What's important to you, voter? Why do you not think this is a good, let's have a robust conversation. We got 18 months till the next session. But this is just an unacceptable, and it's an unacceptable posture for the legislature to make that increase in the basic allotment, $55, would be less than a 1% increase in the basic allotment as it is today. That's not okay. You need to tell your legislators that's not okay. Good news, it's not law yet, right? It's not, the Senate hasn't even voted on it. The Senate committee hasn't even voted on it yet. But there are 3 weeks left, and it was presented as a fait accompli. It was presented as, okay, we have a deal.
Yeah, and in part because it seems like, a lot of these end of session fights are House versus Senate, right? And so you could expect that this bill would be passed by the Senate, and then the conference committee would fight over which version it would be. But it seems like a fait accompli in part because the speaker came out and praised the deal, right? And so talk to us about what the steps are over the course of the next couple of days that advocates who care about this should be taking.
Well, first of all, every advocate should care about it. Second of all, the steps are already happening because people, even without huge prompting, when people saw this information, they said, wait, what? So the activity that has started already of people calling their own legislators, people calling the speaker's office, people calling their school board and saying, you call and say, this is not going to be okay. That has already happened, and it needs to be 100 times louder. People all over the state need to be calling and saying, time out. This is not what we signed up for. I think there is there's going to be a tendency to say, I don't like it because we said there was a deal between vouchers and public education funding, and now you're welching on the deal. I don't think that's not the issue here. Look, was it a good deal or a bad deal? I mean, Texas Impact, you, me, all of our membership, as far as I know, all think it was a bad deal. It was not a deal that the legislature should have made. But here we are. So vouchers are not part of this conversation anymore. The conversation is, if we're going to give money to the school districts from the state, and even saying we're going to give it is kind of the wrong language, right, Scott? Because we owe it. The state owes the money to the school districts. That's what the Constitution says. So if we're going to pay that bill, we need to pay it the right way. And this is not how school districts make their budgets. You don't want to make it into a series of grant applications that you're coming to the Texas Education Agency begging for a boon. You want it to be that the school board can count on consistent operating money coming from the state in sufficient amount to do their job. So call your legislator, but don't only call your legislator. Call your legislator, call your school board members and ask them how you can help. Call the Mr. Speaker and the Lieutenant Governor and tell them this is not really, somebody might have thought it was a fait accompli, but that doesn't make it so. And tell them that this is not a negotiating tactic. This is not, okay, well, we'll start with the House at 395 and we'll start with the Senate at 55 and we'll meet somewhere in the middle. No, we started at 1,300 and wound up at 395 as the per child increase in funding to school districts through the basic allotment. The negotiation is between 395 and any number north of that for the basic allotment, not any number south of it. So that's one thing you can do. The other thing you can do, and this is a really hard thing, and it's a real hard thing. You and I both are not people who are good at this, I think, but you have to encourage people not to be miracle workers. We know what superintendents and principals say when they don't have enough money. They say what we say, and what we say at our church and what we say to our kids is, we will figure this out. We are still going to be able to we're going to be able to do all the things we said we needed to do, and we're just going to figure it out. We're going to tighten our belts in some way, and it's going to work out. It's going to be okay. We're still going to have good schools. At some point, the school district has to be able to say, yeah, I don't know. I mean, we can't make something from nothing. You can't. We have squeezed and squeezed and squeezed and squeezed and squeezed, and we're just not going to be able to have this thing. And it doesn't matter how many gift wrap drives the PTA has, or how many carnivals, or how much communities in schools the local businesses get on board. That's not how we do it. We do it as a state-local partnership, and the state is not being a good partner if they don't pay up.
And so when she says call your legislator, again, call your House member, call your senator, both, because it's going to end up coming before both of them inevitably. So make those telephone calls, talk to your school board members, figure out how you can be supportive. over the course of the next few weeks. And again, I think that messaging is, as you said, is just right. The local community should get to decide where these state dollars go. We shouldn't have school districts begging the state for crumbs. And so make those telephone calls. Let's see if we can get this changed back to the House version. The interim is coming soon. I know we're going to have a lot of homework assignments, a lot of conversations over the course of the next few months about accountability and what comes next. Any closing thoughts for today?
I'm finding that I'm becoming really excited for accountability. I'm starting to get really enthusiastic about how we're going to handle that. But what I would say, my closing thought is, the way you hold someone accountable is first you be sure you know what happened, right? So don't tune out. We got these last couple of weeks here. If you have the opportunity to watch our Ledge TV clips, we're posting things we think it is important for voters to see. We're not doing it just to, as like a fun thing to watch funny clips or people that we like saying things we like or whatever. That is part and parcel of accountability. Be ready to ask your legislator about the things you saw them do, the things you saw them say. And that's a good Sunday school class, honestly, is pick out some of those clips and say, we all live in these couple of districts. Let's watch what happened and talk about how we feel about it.
One of my favorite moments of session was when a friend, former colleague, current leadership council member said that he goes home every night and watches the Ledge TV clips from the day. It's better than the news. So, friends, you too can do that. You can also like and comment on all of them and share them and make sure all of your friends are seeing them. That is the purpose. B, it's been fun. We'll have to do it again sometime.
Absolutely.
And friends, really thank you all for tuning in, both today and throughout the legislative session. I hope you enjoyed this week's conversation and all of the Weekly Witness conversations throughout the session. Again, always fun to have B, and I'm sure we'll have her as part of our wrap-up series post-session. But again, want to thank you for the incredible work that you've been doing throughout the session. Texas Impact is always looking forward to resourcing your faithful advocacy, and will continue to do so over the course of the next 2 to 3 weeks as we close out this legislative session. And then, as B mentioned, we'll be having a whole bunch of conversations in the months to come about what comes next. As always, we hope you get involved. We hope you'll consider joining one of Texas Impact's issue champion teams on the Action Center page of the website at texasimpact.org. If you have questions about anything from today's episode or want to talk about how you can get involved, please reach out at scott@texasimpact.org. While you're on the website, I hope you'll take a moment to sign up to be a member of Texas Impact. Your membership supports this podcast and all of the work to engage Texans of faith to advocate for a more just and equitable Texas. So with that, I think it's time to close out this episode. So remember, the world needs Texans of faith active and engaged. So let's get to work.
Weekly Witness is hosted by Scott Atnet, engineered and produced by David Fasalo. Our executive producer is B. Moorhead. The opinions expressed on Weekly Witness are those of Texas Impact and our guests, and do not necessarily reflect the views of our sponsors. Weekly Witness is a product of Texas Impact, people of faith working for justice. Visit us online at texasimpact.org.